Fear is an unavoidable part of life. It lurks in the background of every decision, every challenge, every uncertain moment. But here's the truth. Fear itself is not the problem. The real danger is allowing fear to dictate your actions, to make you smaller, weaker, and less capable than you could be. The path to emotional strength does not lie in avoiding fear, but in facing it directly, voluntarily, and repeatedly until it loses its grip on you. Most people go through life unconsciously, shaped by their fears. They avoid confrontation because they fear conflict. They refuse to take risks because they fear failure. They silence themselves because they fear rejection. They procrastinate because they fear the possibility of inadequacy. And in doing so, they allow their fears to rule them like a tyrant. Every time you step back instead of forward, you reinforce the idea that fear is stronger than you, and that makes you weaker. The first step to overcoming fear is to name it. Most people feel a vague sense of anxiety, but never take the time to define exactly what they're afraid of. That ambiguity gives fear power. It becomes an overwhelming presence, looming over you like a shadow. But when you name your fear, you bring it into the light. What exactly are you afraid of? Rejection? Embarrassment? Failure? Pain? Loss? Be specific. Say it out loud, write it down. Clarity is the first weapon against fear. Once you have identified your fear, the next step is to confront it voluntarily. This means moving toward what scares you, not away from it. The key word here is voluntarily, because when you choose to face fear on your own terms, you prove to yourself that you are not a victim. You take control of your own growth. You stop waiting for courage to magically appear and instead build it through action. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is action in the presence of fear. Most people assume that emotionally strong individuals simply don't feel afraid, but that's not true. The strongest people feel fear just like everyone else, but they refuse to let it stop them. They have trained themselves to take action despite the discomfort. And the only way to develop that skill is through practice, through stepping into fear over and over again until it no longer paralyzes you. Avoidance is a short-term solution with long-term consequences. When you avoid what scares you, you get immediate relief, but the fear doesn't disappear. It grows. It sits there unresolved and gains strength over time. The next time you encounter the same situation, the fear is even stronger, and you are even less prepared to handle it. Over time, this avoidance creates a pattern of weakness, a habit of retreating from life instead of engaging with it. The only way to break this cycle is to do the exact opposite, to turn and face your fear, even when every part of you wants to run. Exposure is the most effective way to weaken fear. If you are afraid of public speaking, the solution is not to avoid speaking, it's to do it more often, in small, manageable steps until it no longer has power over you. If you fear rejection, the answer is not to avoid relationships. It's to put yourself in situations where rejection is possible and learn that you can survive it. If you fear failure, the solution is not to stay in your comfort zone. It's to take small risks, fail occasionally, and realize that failure is not the end of the world. It's important to recognize that fear is often irrational. Your brain magnifies threats to protect you, but in modern life, most fears are not actual dangers. They are psychological barriers. Your body reacts to social rejection or career failure as if they were life-threatening, but they're not. The consequences are rarely as catastrophic as your mind makes them seem. When you begin facing your fears, you'll quickly realize that most of them were illusions, smoke and mirrors, keeping you from your potential. The more you confront fear, the stronger you become. Over time, things that once seemed terrifying become manageable, even routine. What was once an overwhelming challenge becomes something you can handle with ease. This is how confidence is built, not through empty affirmations or wishful thinking, but through action. Through proving to yourself again and again that you are capable of handling what life throws at you. Ultimately, fear is a test. It asks you, will you shrink or will you rise? Every time you choose to face it, You cast a vote for strength. You reinforce the idea that you are someone who can handle difficulty, who does not back down from challenges, who refuses to be controlled by fear. And that, more than anything, is what makes a person emotionally strong. Life is unpredictable, chaotic, and often unfair. There are countless factors outside your control. Your genetics, where you were born, how you were raised, the tragedies that might strike at any moment. But despite all of that, one truth remains. You are responsible for your own life. No one else will carry that burden for you. No one else will fix your problems, and no one else will come to save you. If you want to be emotionally strong, the first step is to take full responsibility for everything you can. Responsibility is not a punishment. It is power. The moment you decide that your actions, your choices, and your responses are within your control, you take back authority over your life. People who refuse to take responsibility remain stuck, blaming circumstances, society, or other people for their failures. And while their excuses may be valid, they do nothing to change reality. Blame is easy, but it is also a dead end. Responsibility, on the other hand, is the path to growth because it forces you to acknowledge that if something in your life isn't working, it's up to you to fix it. Many people avoid responsibility because it is uncomfortable. It is far easier to believe that your problems are someone else's fault. That way, you don't have to change. You don't have to put in effort. You can stay exactly where you are and justify it by pointing at external factors. But this mindset is a trap. It keeps you weak because as long as you believe your problems are someone else's responsibility, you are powerless to solve them. Strength comes from recognizing that no matter how difficult the circumstances, you always have a choice. You can always take action even if that action is small. Taking responsibility does not mean blaming yourself for everything bad that happens. Life is full of random, unfair events that are not your fault. But even when something is not your fault, it is still your responsibility to deal with it. If you lose your job because your company downsized, that is not your fault. But it is still your responsibility to find a new way forward. If someone mistreats you, that is not your fault. But it is your responsibility to decide how you will respond. Will you let it define you? Will you become bitter and resentful? Or will you take control and move forward despite it? The strongest people in the world are not the ones who have had the easiest lives. In fact, many of the most resilient, successful individuals have faced extreme hardships. What separates them from the rest is their mindset. Instead of allowing their past to dictate their future, they take responsibility for their next step. They refuse to be victims of circumstance. They refuse to let hardship break them. Instead, they use it as fuel to become stronger. This is not an easy process. Taking responsibility requires honesty. You have to look at yourself critically and ask, where am I making excuses? Where am I avoiding effort? What am I pretending is outside my control when in reality I could change it? These are difficult questions because they force you to confront uncomfortable truths. Maybe you are not as disciplined as you should be. Maybe you have been avoiding necessary action because it is hard. Maybe you have been blaming others when the real issue is your own choices. But if you have the courage to ask these questions and answer them truthfully, you will begin to transform. A responsible person does not wait for motivation, they act. They do not wait for the perfect conditions, they move forward anyway. They do not expect someone else to solve their problems, they take ownership of them. This is the foundation of emotional strength, because when you take responsibility, you are no longer at the mercy of external forces. You become the architect of your own life. Many people confuse responsibility with burden. They think that taking responsibility means shouldering an unbearable weight. But the truth is the opposite. The more responsibility you take, the stronger you become, and the stronger you become, the lighter the load feels. Small responsibilities prepare you for greater ones. When you start holding yourself accountable for your daily habits, your discipline improves. When you take responsibility for your emotions, you stop being reactive. When you take responsibility for your career, your relationships, your health, you stop drifting and start making deliberate choices. The people who take responsibility are the ones who succeed. They are the ones who rise above challenges, who build meaningful lives, who earn respect, not just from others, but from themselves. Because when you take responsibility, you gain something invaluable, self-trust. You begin to believe in yourself because you see through your own actions that you are capable, that you are not just a passive observer of your own life, but an active participant. At the end of the day, you have two choices. You can remain in a state of blame and passivity, waiting for something or someone to change your life for you, or you can take full responsibility, step into the discomfort of effort, and shape your own future. One path leads to weakness and regret. The other leads to strength and self-respect. The choice is yours. Truth is the foundation of strength. Without it, everything you build, your relationships, your self-respect, your sense of purpose, rests on unstable ground. Yet many people lie to themselves and others every single day. They do it to avoid conflict, to protect their egos, or to make life feel easier in the short term. But deception, no matter how small, always carries a cost. If you want to be emotionally strong, you must commit to telling the truth, even when it is difficult, even when it is uncomfortable, even when it forces you to face painful realities. Lying weakens you because it disconnects you from reality. Every time you distort the truth, you create a gap between what is real and what you pretend is real. That gap creates instability. The further you drift from the truth, the more fragile you become because you are no longer living in alignment with the way things actually are. And when reality inevitably pushes back, you will not be prepared. Strength comes from clarity, and clarity comes from truth. The most dangerous lies are the ones you tell yourself. People deceive themselves about their abilities, their habits, their motivations. They tell themselves they are fine when they are not. They tell themselves they are trying their best when they are not. They tell themselves they are victims when they are in fact avoiding responsibility. These lies offer temporary comfort, but in the long run they lead to stagnation and failure. You cannot fix what you refuse to acknowledge. You cannot grow if you do not first see where you are lacking. If you lie to yourself about your problems, you ensure that those problems will never be solved. The first step to strength is radical honesty with yourself. Look at your life. Where are you avoiding the truth? Where are you pretending something is fine when it is not? Where are you making excuses? Confront these lies. Say them out loud. Write them down. Drag them into the light. Because the moment you acknowledge them, they begin to lose their power over you. Telling the truth is not just about avoiding outright lies. It is about refusing to participate in deception of any kind. Many people engage in half-truths, omissions, and exaggerations to shape reality in a way that serves their immediate interests. They manipulate facts to protect their self-position. But every time you do this, you make yourself weaker. Strength comes from standing firmly in reality, from refusing to twist the facts to make yourself more comfortable. When you start telling the truth, expect resistance. People may not want to hear it. You may not want to hear it. The truth is often painful, but it is never as destructive as the consequences of avoiding it. Lies accumulate interest. The longer they go unchallenged, the more damage they cause. A single small deception may not seem significant, but over time, these small distortions compound, creating a web of falsehoods that becomes increasingly difficult to untangle. Relationships built on dishonesty eventually crumble. Self-deception leads to a life of mediocrity and regret. People often avoid the truth because they fear the consequences of honesty. They worry about conflict, rejection, or discomfort. But consider the alternative. What are the consequences of dishonesty? A life built on lies is unstable, weak, and full of hidden resentment. There is no real strength in that. If telling the truth leads to difficulty, then so be it. Strength is not about avoiding hardship. It is about confronting it. Telling the truth also means speaking with precision, Many people speak vaguely, leaving room for misinterpretation because they fear being fully accountable for their words. But precision in speech reflects clarity of thought. If you cannot articulate what you truly mean, how can you expect to act with conviction? Say what you mean what you say. This does not mean being needlessly harsh or cruel, but it does mean refusing to dilute the truth to make yourself or others more comfortable. The ability to tell the truth, even when it is inconvenient, builds immense confidence. When you know you are honest, you do not have to keep track of what you said to whom. You do not have to live in fear of being exposed. You do not have to waste mental energy maintaining falsehoods. You walk through life with the certainty that you are grounded in reality, that your words and actions align, that you are trustworthy. This inner consistency creates emotional strength. Truth-telling is a habit, and like any habit, it must be practiced. Start small. Be honest about your opinions, even when they are unpopular. Be honest about your feelings, even when they make you vulnerable. Be honest about your mistakes, even when it is embarrassing. Each act of truthfulness makes you stronger. Over time, it becomes a core part of who you are, a person who does not evade reality, who does not manipulate others, who does not live in fear of exposure. A person who stands firmly in the truth is a person who cannot be easily shaken. At the core of all of this is one simple fact. Truth is the foundation of strength. Lies weaken, distort, and erode the very structure of your life. Truth builds, fortifies, and strengthens. The more you align yourself with what is real, the more capable you become. Emotional strength is not about avoiding discomfort. It is about facing reality head-on, no matter how difficult. If you want to be unshakable, unbreakable, truly strong, start by telling the truth. Many people go through life chasing approval, desperately seeking validation from others. They shape their words, their actions, even their beliefs around what will make them likable, acceptable, and admired. But this pursuit is a trap. It places your sense of worth in the hands of others, making you dependent on their opinions and reactions. And the moment you live for approval, you become weak. You sacrifice your potential, your growth, and even your integrity to maintain the illusion that others think well of you. The stronger path, the only path to true competence and self-respect, is to focus on developing real skill, ability, and mastery instead of trying to please people. Approval is fleeting. No matter how much you try to gain it, it will never be enough. You could have the admiration of 100 people today and lose it tomorrow. People's opinions are unstable, constantly shifting based on trends, emotions, and personal biases. If you build your identity around them, you will always be on shaky ground. Competence, on the other hand, is solid. It is earned through effort, discipline, and the pursuit of excellence. It is something no one can take from you. When you are truly competent, when you know what you are doing, when you have sharpened your mind and skills, approval becomes irrelevant. You do not need it because your sense of worth comes from something real. Focusing on approval makes you hesitant. You avoid risk, fearing judgment. You hold back from speaking the truth because someone might not like it. You choose comfort over growth because failure could lead to embarrassment. This way of living leads to stagnation. Growth requires stepping outside your comfort zone, and that often means facing criticism, rejection, and even failure. If your primary concern is being liked, you will never take the necessary risks to achieve true success. But when you shift your focus to competence, to getting better, to mastering your craft, suddenly failure is no longer something to be feared. It becomes part of the process, a necessary step toward improvement. Competence is a result of discipline and effort. No one becomes highly skilled overnight. It takes years of deliberate practice, repeated failure, and constant refinement. But most people are unwilling to commit to this process because they are too concerned with how they appear in the moment. They want to be seen as smart, talented, or impressive right away, so they fake confidence, exaggerate their abilities, or avoid situations where their weaknesses might be exposed. This is a dangerous way to live because it prioritizes appearance over reality. The person who truly becomes competent is the one who is willing to look foolish at first, who is willing to struggle, who is more concerned with long-term mastery than short-term validation. Seeking competence over approval also means taking responsibility for your own growth. Many people rely on external validation to feel motivated. They need encouragement, praise, or recognition to keep going. But the strongest individuals do not depend on these things. They push themselves forward regardless of whether anyone is watching or applauding. They measure their progress not by the reactions of others, but by their own standards of excellence. This self-reliance is what creates true confidence, not the kind of confidence that comes from compliments or status, but the deep, unshakable confidence that comes from knowing you are actually capable. This mindset also changes how you view criticism. If you are focused on approval, criticism feels like an attack. It threatens your sense of worth. But if you are focused on competence, criticism is valuable. It is information, feedback that can help you improve. You do not take it personally because you are not trying to protect an image. You are trying to become better. You listen to what is useful, discard what is not, and continue refining your skills. The reality is, the more competent you become, the more respect you will earn naturally. People admire those who are genuinely skilled, disciplined, and capable. But the irony is that those who truly earn respect are the ones who are not chasing it. They are too busy improving themselves, working hard, and focusing on what really matters. Meanwhile, those who spend all their energy seeking approval usually end up being seen as weak, inauthentic, or desperate. At the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, do you want to be liked or do you want to be capable? Do you want the illusion of success or do you want real mastery? Do you want to shape yourself to fit the expectations of others, or do you want to build something real within yourself that no one can take away? The choice is simple. If you want to be emotionally strong, stop worrying about what others think. Stop seeking validation. Stop living for approval. Instead, dedicate yourself to something meaningful. Pursue excellence. Build real competence. Master your craft. Because in the end, it is not the opinions of others that will determine your success or fulfillment. It is your ability to take action, solve problems, and become truly capable. Discomfort is something most people try to avoid at all costs. They structure their lives around ease, convenience, and pleasure, believing that comfort is the key to happiness. But this mindset is a trap. The more you avoid discomfort, the weaker you become. The moment life presents a challenge, you crumble because you have never trained yourself to endure hardship. Strength, emotional, mental, and even physical, comes from leaning into discomfort, not running from it. If you want to be truly strong, if you want to build resilience, discipline, and confidence, you must embrace discomfort as an essential part of life. Discomfort is the price of growth. Every meaningful achievement, learning a new skill, improving your health, building a career, strengthening relationships, requires struggle. There is no progress without effort, and effort is often uncomfortable. The people who achieve the most in life are not necessarily the most talented or the luckiest. They are the ones who have learned to endure and even seek out discomfort in pursuit of something greater. They understand that the pain of discipline is far better than the pain of regret. Most people live in avoidance mode. They avoid difficult conversations to keep the peace. They avoid physical exertion because it is tiring. They avoid challenging tasks because they fear failure. But every time you avoid discomfort, you reinforce weakness. You train yourself to be fragile. You tell your mind and body that you cannot handle hardship, and over time this belief becomes reality. Soon, even small challenges feel overwhelming. But if you do the opposite, if you consistently expose yourself to discomfort, you develop real strength. You prove to yourself that you can endure more than you thought, and this builds an unshakable inner confidence. One of the simplest ways to embrace discomfort is to seek it out intentionally. This does not mean making yourself suffer for no reason, but it does mean deliberately putting yourself in situations that challenge you. Do things that make you physically uncomfortable. Exercise hard. Take cold showers. Push your body beyond what feels easy. Do things that make you mentally uncomfortable. Read difficult books. Engage in challenging conversations. Force yourself to think deeply about complex issues. Do things that make you emotionally uncomfortable. Face your fears. Take responsibility for your mistakes. Stand up for what you believe in. Each time you willingly step into discomfort, you expand your capacity for handling it. And over time, what once seemed unbearable becomes normal. Discomfort also reveals who you truly are. It strips away illusions and exposes your character. When things are easy, anyone can appear strong, confident, and composed. But in moments of real difficulty, when you are exhausted, when you are struggling, when you are facing rejection or failure, that is when your true nature is revealed. If you have never trained yourself to endure discomfort, you will collapse under pressure. But if you have spent years conditioning yourself to handle adversity, you will remain steady when others break. The strongest people in the world are not those who avoid pain, but those who have learned to use it. They do not complain about discomfort. They embrace it as part of the process. A weightlifter understands that muscle growth requires strain. A skilled musician knows that mastery requires hours of frustrating practice. A great leader recognizes that responsibility comes with stress and criticism. The path to success in any field runs directly through discomfort, and the sooner you accept this, the sooner you can start making real progress. Many people misunderstand happiness. They believe happiness comes from comfort, but in reality, happiness comes from overcoming challenges. The most fulfilling moments in life are not the easy ones. They are the moments when you struggled, fought through difficulty, and came out stronger on the other side. Think about the times in your life when you felt the most proud of yourself. Were those moments when everything was easy? Or were they moments when you pushed through hardship, when you faced adversity and prevailed? True fulfillment comes from growth, and growth is always accompanied by discomfort. Now, this does not mean you should seek misery. It does not mean you should make your life harder just for the sake of suffering. It means you should stop fearing discomfort and start viewing it as an opportunity. Every time you feel uncomfortable, whether physically, mentally, or emotionally, it is a signal that you are stepping outside your comfort zone. And outside your comfort zone is where all growth happens. The world will not spare you from hardship. No matter how much you try to create a comfortable life, challenges will come. Loved ones will pass away. Careers will face setbacks. Relationships will encounter difficulties. If you have spent your life avoiding discomfort, these moments will break you. But if you have trained yourself to handle discomfort, if you have repeatedly exposed yourself to difficulty and strengthened your ability to endure, you will stand firm when life becomes difficult. In the end, the choice is simple. You can avoid discomfort, remain fragile, and live a life dictated by fear and avoidance, or you can embrace discomfort, build resilience, and become the kind of person who can handle anything. Strength is not given, it is earned through hardship. And those who learn to embrace discomfort will always have the advantage over those who run from it. Without a vision, you drift. You move through life reacting to whatever comes your way instead of shaping your own future. A vision gives you direction, purpose, and a reason to push forward when things get difficult. It is the foundation of a meaningful life. Without it, you are vulnerable to distractions, temptations, and the expectations of others. You become lost, unsure of what you truly want, constantly shifting from one thing to another, without ever making real progress. If you want to be strong, mentally, emotionally, and even physically, you must develop a clear vision of what you want your life to be. A vision is more than just a vague hope for the future. It is not simply, I want to be successful or I want to be happy. A real vision is precise. It defines what success looks like for you, what kind of person you want to become, what kind of impact you want to have on the world. It gives you something concrete to aim for. Without that clarity, your efforts are scattered. You waste time chasing things that do not matter because you have not defined what truly does. Most people never take the time to articulate a vision for their lives. They live passively, allowing circumstances to dictate their direction. They take whatever job is available, follow whatever path seems easiest, and let the expectations of society or their families determine their goals. Then, years later, they wake up feeling unfulfilled, wondering why they never achieved anything meaningful. The answer is simple. They never had a vision in the first place. They never set a course, so they wandered aimlessly. Having a vision does not mean you will achieve everything exactly as you imagine it. Life is unpredictable. Obstacles will appear. Your priorities may evolve. But having a vision provides a framework, a guiding principle that helps you navigate uncertainty. When you encounter difficulties, your vision reminds you why you started in the first place. It keeps you anchored when everything around you is chaotic. Without it, challenges feel overwhelming because there is no greater purpose to sustain you. A strong vision requires honesty. You must ask yourself serious questions. What do I truly want? What kind of person do I want to be? What values do I refuse to compromise? Many people never ask these questions because they are afraid of the answers. They fear discovering that their current path does not align with what they truly desire. They fear the responsibility that comes with setting a bold vision for their life. But if you avoid these questions, you condemn yourself to mediocrity. Once you have a vision, you must take action. A vision without action is just a fantasy. Many people spend their lives dreaming of what could be, but never take the necessary steps to make it real. They wait for the perfect moment, the perfect opportunity, the perfect plan, but perfection never comes. The only way to bring a vision to life is to start, even if you do not have everything figured out. You refine your vision through action, through trial and error, through persistence. A compelling vision also forces you to make sacrifices. If you are serious about building something meaningful, you cannot afford to waste time on things that do not serve that purpose. This means cutting out distractions, saying no to short-term pleasures, and avoiding people who drain your energy. Many people struggle with this because they want to hold on to everything: their comfort, their old habits, their fear of change. But strength comes from focus, and focus requires sacrifice. There will be moments of doubt. You will question whether your vision is realistic. You will face criticism from people who do not understand it. You will encounter setbacks that make you want to quit. This is where most people give up. They abandon their vision because the path is harder than they expected. But the strongest individuals push through these moments. They do not let temporary struggles shake their long-term commitment. They understand that anything worth achieving requires endurance. A vision also gives you confidence. When you know where you are going, you walk with purpose. You are not easily swayed by the opinions of others. You do not waste energy comparing yourself to people on different paths. You are not paralyzed by indecision. Every step you take is intentional because you are moving towards something meaningful. In the end, having a vision is what separates those who lead from those who follow. It is what separates those who build something meaningful from those who merely exist. You can choose to live passively, letting life happen to you, or you can take control, define your path, and pursue something greater. The choice is yours. But understand this: without a vision, you will always be lost. With a vision, you will always have a reason to keep moving forward.